It's time for Fort Worth Musical Moments. Join us now as Steve Markwardt takes a look at the music and the artists who made the city's vibrant musical legacy what it is today. Well, here we are. It's 10 a.m. Central. Do you know where your friends are? I hope they're watching Fort Worth Musical Moments here because we are ready to go. Brent Adams along with my co-host Steve Markwardt and our unofficial co-host Curt Ryle, who seems to spend a lot of time hanging out here. We may just need to dub him the third co-host, Steve.
Well, Kurt's already got his own show, Curt Ryle's Road Story, so he's trying to secretly become the king of all media, I think.
Well, he is well on his way to that. These guys in the Great Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee here having a great week, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But before we launch into the show here, a little bit of seriousness here today. Anybody who follows the show knows we're a great fans of the crooners, and today we lost arguably the last of the great old school crooners in Tony Bennett, and that's a big blow. Passed away today at age 96. And Steve, I know you as well as I are a big fan of Tony and his vocal stylings, and man, just spending a little time this morning going back and listening to some of those recordings, just untouchable.
Tony Bennett was kind of in a class all to himself, kind of like Sinatra. Most of those guys, they had their own style within a genre of music. Tony Bennett just had that. I mean, he lit up the stage, and he always had that glow about him, that smile about him. And you could hear him smiling when he sang. You know what I mean?
And, as I was getting ready for the show this morning and listening to some Tony Bennett here, we got the platters out. And was thinking, man, I wish we had somebody on the show who could tell a Tony Bennett story. And then I get on here and lo and behold, guess who's got a Tony Bennett story?
Yeah, I was very fortunate back in, I think it was at 2003, maybe 2004. My father loved to play the blackjack tables, loved to go to Shreveport and Vegas, and we did yearly trips to Lake Tahoe. But this particular time, he'd been going to Shreveport quite a bit and was one of the VIP guys, I guess, out at the Hollywood Casino out there. And so he took my brother and I on a trip out there one time. And lo and behold, Tony Bennett was playing. And so we got tickets to see him. And right before we were about to go to the concert, my dad said, "Oh, by the way, the concierge called and asked if we wanted to meet Tony Bennett." And I told him I wasn't sure. And I said, "What? You what?" I said, "Dad, you call him back and say we were there." And so he goes, "Well, I don't care much. My father, didn't go much further than Hank Williams, Of course, he liked Tony Bennett, don't get me wrong, but he said, "Well, you and your brother go back, go meet him." And so we got to see him in concert, and he was fabulous. He came out in this shark skin suit, like a royal blue that just glowed in the dark. And he put on a heck of a show. And then lo and behold, we got to go back and sit in his dressing room for, we probably sat there for 45 minutes or so talking to him. Wow. He opened the door. He's like, "Hey, how you doing? Come on back." And he was a little short guy, but still larger than life. And I'll never forget that. He was so gracious, so friendly, asked about our families, wanted to know all about our families. And I was just in awe. And so I've got a picture that was taken with my brother and I flanking him in the photograph with our arms around each other. And I'll try to dig that up and maybe we can show it next week, but I'll never forget that. And so, it's very rare that you get to meet a legend like that. I would have loved to have met Sinatra, but I don't think he was very amiable as far as meeting people backstage. But Tony Bennett was the next best thing, in some ways better. I mean, even Sinatra said Tony Bennett was, at one point said Tony Bennett was the best singer he'd ever heard. So
right. Curt, what stands out in your mind about Tony Bennett as a singer?
Just that whole big band era. I thought he had the smoothest voice of all of them, and I thought he was better actually on stage than Sinatra. I know that's saying a lot, but he just seemed to, his moves and the way he conducted himself on stage, his stage presence, I just thought it was brilliant.
Well,
I loved him.
And his control.
Yeah.
I mean, he could, I mean, and way up into his, much later, up until just a few years ago, he was still doing, he came out with an album in 90, it was the album Astoria. That one. Wow, you work fast, Brett. That album, and I caught, I was a mild Tony Bennett fan. I'd heard, I Left My Heart in San Francisco, and we'd do that on karaoke. And of course, The Good Life is a great song, and I Want to Be Around, some of those songs. But I happened to be sitting at home one night around that period of time, early 90s and late mid 90s, around the time that album came out, unaware of that album, but he made a surprise appearance on the Grammys, and he stole the show. He got out there and did this, the lead song in that album called When Do the Bells Ring for Me. If you listen to that song, he did that song, and it's got a huge, big ending, a big finish. And when he was done, he had people crying in their seats, and then everybody gave him a standing ovation. And the way he delivered the song visually, his whole face just lit up. And that's what I loved about him. And so at that point in time, that kind of launched his kind of resurrected him. And he became not only relevant, but extremely popular. And then, of course, through the years, he did all these duet albums. And, of course, the most notable one was with Lady Gaga, right, which made me realize Lady Gaga had a lot of real talent as well.
Yeah, he really brought it out of her. And I was listening to a collaboration with John Mayer this morning, also one with Natalie Cole. And just the way he worked with other artists, it really brought out the best in them.
Yeah, it really did. So true professional, and he grew up in the streets of New York, Astoria, New York, right there, probably close to Hell's Kitchen. Who knows where that is, but it's, he was just an Italian kid named Antonio Benedetti, and I don't know how he got his start. I'll have to look into that, but I'm sure just like Sinatra, probably started knocking around the little nightclubs, and next thing got a break here and there, and then I think his first big hit was Rags to Riches, I believe, back in the 40s, and and then the rest is history.
Yeah, just the timbre of that voice right up there with Mel Torme is just some of the smoothest vocalists, and just draws you in. You listen to one or two songs and you just want to spend the whole day listening to it. It's just that good.
Mel Torme, yeah, that's another great.
The Velvet Fog.
Call him the Velvet Fog. Yeah, that was, yeah. And a real quick Mel Torme story. So when I sang with this big band for like 4 years there in Texas, in and around North Texas, we did a lot of shows. Our band lead conductor, Mark Heddle, was the band leader and conductor for years at the Fairmont in Dallas. In Dallas, Fairmont Hotel, they had all these great acts come through there. He worked with everybody from Ella Fitzgerald to you name it, he worked with it. In fact, I went to see a few shows with my mother. I saw Carol Channing there, and saw Joel Gray, the guy that was in Cabaret. But anyway, he said by far the most gracious guy he ever worked with was Mel Torme. He said Mel came walking in with his whole suitcase full of charts, and sat down with all the band and just started passing out charts, and and he was real gracious, and he said he was the nicest guy. So that was an honor for me to get to actually perform under a conductor like that. I learned a lot about vocal styling from Mark.
Definitely the end of an era, but boy, what a legacy left behind by those gentlemen here. So
last of the saloon singers, my friend.
All right. Well, I tell you what, at least we can go back and delve into that music here when we're not delving into the music of the artists on Clarksville Creative Sound. Which is what you guys have been working on this week up there in the Great Smoky Mountains, a little retreat here to kind of regroup and kind of strategize for the future, huh?
We have. Curt and I have been doing a lot of, we came up here to write music, and we came away with not one song.
No. Business meetings ever since we got here. And
that and babysitting.
Yeah, we had a couple of our artists here with us. Evie May and Braden Ryle were up here with us writing. Well, we were supposed to write, but
I should have known with the last name Ryle, he was going to be high maintenance.
Not to get too far away from what we were talking about with Tony Bennett, I got a phone call about 45 minutes ago, Brent, from a friend of mine who was married to Janet Jackson's former guitar player. His name was Michael Miller. He was a rock guitarist and songwriter, and he recorded a lot of songs. I produced a lot of stuff with him. He worked with Janet Jackson for I don't know how long, but he just passed away last night. And so it's just been one of those strange mornings, having all this news hitting you. But I just want to wish her well. Her name is Cheryl, and I want to wish Cheryl well out there. I don't know if she's listening in, but I know this happened just last night, and it's kind of he had been battling cancer for a while, so this was not something we didn't expect, but we thought he was getting better. So in a sense, we did it kind of surprised us.
We'll definitely rally all the prayer warriors watching here to be praying for that family here, and talk about another great legacy left behind. Everything that Janet Jackson created through the 80s and 90s, just some magnificent stuff there.
Yeah. One time she was maybe bigger than Michael,
Right. Yeah. No question. No question. So what have you guys come away with? Tell us a bit about what the week has looked like for you.
Well, one of the things that we needed to do, we've been kicking this around for quite some time, looking at the whole big picture as a puzzle, so to speak, and the puzzle pieces being these artists that we've been working with, that Curt's been working with, I should say. I'm kind of a newcomer. I just joined Curt, about a year and a half ago. So, but gotten to meet just about every artist that we were going to talk about, except for one, which I'm meeting tomorrow face to face, Jaden Riley. But we, since we've kind of rebranded and launched the Clarksville Creative Sound brand as a record label and as a affiliate of the Big Matador recording studio, we knew as this thing gained momentum that we needed to solidify our roster of artists.
Right.
So Curt and I have been going back and forth on this.
There's some artists that we loved and feel like that. And this just anytime you have a roster for a label like this, it's subject to change. It could go either way. Right now, we just had to sit down and say, okay, because we're working on some stuff that's very important with TV. And things of that nature. And, of course, we got this Route 66 road tour. And so we had to have artists. These people need to know who the artists are that's on the roster. So we came up with a roster. And should we mention?
This is kind of our foundational roster of Clarksville Creative Sound artists. And again, this, it's organic. It's subject to growth and change at any point in time. But this is where we are today, and so what this means is that people on this list will be actively stepping up our game and promoting them, helping them with all kinds of promotional efforts and live performance, through these tours that we're working on, and then eventually we'll talk about some of the other things, the exciting things that we've got on tap that will involve each one of these artists in some way. So if you'd like, we can just quickly go through the list.
Well, and also let me say that not all of them, not at this point, none of them are signed. We're getting ready to sign them. So, of course, there may be a few artists here that has changed their mind. I don't think so, but
well, if they
this
have,
wouldn't apply to them.
If they have, then Godspeed, and they're going to miss out on some pretty cool stuff. But it is what it is. But we've talked to every one of these folks, and I've gotten to know them over the phone or in person. And I think everyone on this list is extremely excited about what we've shared with them as to our plans. And of course, those plans are always subject to alteration or nothing's done deal until it's a done deal. But we've got some promising things on the horizon, and we'll touch on that a little bit. But why don't we go through this list real quick? Mm-hmm. And what I want to do is we'll just talk about each name, and then Curt, you and I can talk about kind of where they fit in. Mm-hmm. And how they complement, and how they make kind of the sum of the whole here. So,
all right. Well, let's start at the top of the list. We're going alphabetical here, so there's not one above another here. But first one we want to look at here is Lonnie Bartmus.
Curt?
Yeah, Lonnie Bartmus. Lonnie Bartmus has been with me for a number of years, several years. I don't think there's a better singer in the world than Lonnie Bartmus at what he does. He's the best traditional country vocalist that I can honestly. I don't think I've ever recorded anybody better than him. And I've recorded George Jones and Vern Gosdin and all these guys, Mel Tillis. Lonnie brings something to the table that we just desperately need, and I think the world is just crying out for this kind of music. I think they want it, they're hungry for it, and he's just a no-brainer. And Lonnie's just a good guy. And we're really, really lucky and happy to have him.
Yeah, he's got such great control of his voice and his pitch, and and he can deliver a song. You listen to that any song he does, and he kind of makes it his own, and he delivers it with a good amount of emotion, and just a great artist.
Yeah. And the next one we're going to go to, taking us down under to Vanessa Bourne.
Yeah, she's a real pain. No, I'm just kidding. She's Vanessa. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, Vanessa came to me. Of course, she's from Australia, and she came to me basically saying, "Cut. I need somebody who can take my voice and make me sound more country." And so that's basically, I just took her in to produce her, and it wasn't easy getting her to, it's funny, somebody from the South teaching someone from Australia how to speak the English language, right? Because we screw it up worse than anybody. But, there's something authentic about the way we speak in the South, and with this traditional country music. And so she would have to take words like pretty, and I'd say, no, put a D there. Anytime there's two T's, you put two D's. And she would say pretty. And I'd say, that's right. She says, "Cut, it's so ugly." And I said, "I have to do." And she did it. And of course, the rest is kind of, there's nothing left to say, because she's won just about every award there is to win out there, Brent.
Yeah, she just got a special award last year at the CMA of Texas Awards. Mary Minner, I can't remember the name of the award. Mary,
it was the International Award or something along those lines.
And she's a force, especially in Australia. And of course, she's helping us open doors over there to eventually be able to bring some of our artists over there and do tours, because the people in Australia love their country music. Yeah.
And she's a great lover of the traditional artists, like Patsy Cline and George Jones and Loretta Lynn. So
yep.
Great throwback artist. Next guy I want to talk about is one who pops up pretty often on Rural Strong Radio. And when I hear him, he's right there in the vein of some of the greats in Western swing music. And I'm talking about Eric Diamond.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Diamond. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about Eric Diamond. Eric Diamond comes into my studio. We recorded an album on him, and of course, I had never worked with Eric, but what I learned very quickly was that there's nobody in the world, and I mean in the world, period, with the work ethic of Eric Diamond. This guy is like the Energizer Bunny. I mean, he can go and I've never seen anybody work so hard, Brent. He's got a huge fan base.
Do you think some of that energy is because of all the chocolate he eats?
Did have a big chocolate thing. I hope Eric's watching, because he'll get a kick out. I had a big old bowl, and I put chocolate in it every morning. I'd go back in the next morning and it'd be gone, and I'd just dump another sack of chocolate in there. Eric loves his chocolate, but in all honesty, Eric has plugged us into some really important people. He's got a big fan base. He knows a lot of people. He's a very good Western swing artist. That's all he does is Western swing, and he makes no bones about it. That's who he is.
He's got a huge following.
Yes, he does.
And he's opening some doors for us that otherwise we wouldn't have open to us. He and I have talked quite a bit, and so we're talking about some of these, playing the casino circuits, like in Vegas and all over, there's the casinos in Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Eric's somewhere working just about every day, it seems like. So he's one of the hardest working guys out there.
The next guy on the roster here comes from the Shepherdsville, Kentucky area, not too far from me, just south of Louisville, Kentucky, and that is Kevin Fullen.
Yeah, let me tell you something about Kevin. Kevin is one of these guys. He's like an old cowboy, and he what I noticed about Kevin I wasn't sure we were going to sign Kevin at first, but I noticed we put a single out there on him, and immediately every station wanted it, and they were playing it in heavy rotation. And that's just a sign of an artist, that the radio people they can attach to it. They love everything he does. And we really went back and forth on this with Kevin. We both really like Kevin a lot. And I said, I just think we got to keep this guy on this roster because I think the radio stations really like him. So that's where we're at with Kevin.
Plus, I got to meet him over the phone. I was in New Mexico and I called him just to get acquainted with him. And I'm thinking, okay, I told my wife, this will be about a 20-minute call or whatever. And then we can go on about our day. An hour and a half later, she's standing there looking at her watch. And Kevin and I connected in a real good way. And we talked. And I told Curt, I said, this guy's a great guy. And he's willing to do what it takes. And so we're thrilled to have Kevin on our roster here.
Well, the next artist is one who is a great champion for independent artists from the radio side, as well as herself a great artist. And I'm referring to the proprietor of the great KSSL FM in Post Slayton in the South Plains, Lubbock, Texas. I'm talking about Kathy Jewell.
Yeah, Kathy, just the fact that Kathy has to supervise Billy Bowles tells us, no, we love Billy. So Kathy came to us. Kathy's been, she's no stranger to putting music out there. She's been doing it a while. When she came to Curt through either Dina Wood or Mary Mentor, maybe both. Mm-hmm. You can talk about your experience with her when you first got her in the studio.
Well, first time I met Kathy, I already knew who she was because she's kind of an icon out there. I mean, she's had some pretty good success as a vocalist, but what I liked about her was her personality is so bubbly, and she's got such a sweetness about her, and she's got a great voice. Another girl with a really strong work ethic she came in, we wrote probably 7 or 8 songs for her next album that we're getting ready to record next week. So Kathy will be coming in, and I think she brings a lot to the table, not only through her radio station. She's got 250,000 watt radio stations, is the way, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
And so she's just kind of a no-brainer. She's going to cover a lot of territory.
She's the voice of that part of Texas. That radio station is. They've got great programming there, including Billy Bowles Swinging Country, which you syndicate through your Rural Strong Radio, say. But she's also got Suzanne Abbey there, who is a superwoman who is somebody that does a lot of work behind the scenes, including helping Dina Wood with the distribution on Indie Express. So, all these people pitch in and help each other. A real funny story real quick, and then we'll go on. When I was there when Kathy came in the studio, and she brought her husband with her, and his name escapes me. Rock, and he's his country. He's his cowboy. He's like Chuck Connors from The Rifleman walks in, right? Very serious, stone face. Well, anyway, we were just talking to Kathy about some of this, and Curt was showing her some of the videos of that he produced or that we've done, and the songs, and listening to some of the music that Curt had produced, and trying to get her familiar with that. But we showed her the video, the one that you seem to always pull up.
Don't get him going now.
Talking in your sleep.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He was done watching as he's the very end right there. I look up and Kathy's laughing. We're laughing. Rock, is it Rock?
Yeah.
He's backing up. He's back going, I think I'm in the wrong room.
And he wasn't kidding. He wasn't smiling either. But what I loved about her husband, at first I wasn't sure about Rock, but he won me over big time because Kathy and I are down there writing, and I don't see Rock. He hasn't been. We've been down there every day for a week writing songs, and Rock is just not there. And I'm like, where is this guy? And then when I got a chance, when we were finished, I went upstairs and everything in my house, Brent, that was broken, he fixed it. So I mean, sinks. This guy just was like, he saved me thousands of dollars.
And he was back there rubbing your wife's shoulders.
It's crazy.
Well, I got a couple of things on the fritz here. You might have to send her up my way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're good people. Man.
Kathy's a really great person. She's very well connected. She's got a fabulous voice, and she's just now realizing the extent of her voice. You know, it takes a good producer like Curt to bring that out in you. So they're a match made in heaven.
Well, the next artist here, if you were checked in last week on the show, you would have spent some time with him. And we're talking about out of Louisiana, Terry LeMaster.
Yeah, Terry is the true Christian bluegrass singer that we have that writes his own material. He comes in here and everything he writes, I love it. And he resonates with that bluegrass crowd. And there's a lot of those people out there.
Right.
They have bluegrass festivals all over the United States. And we want to keep these genres alive and well. And Steve and I have really decided that we're going to keep Terry on here. Terry is somebody we really need, and he's got all these great messages in his songs. When you say Steve, and
I do, yeah,
and people love him.
Yeah, I just love his stuff. You know, his songs are kind of back to basics. You know, they're simplistic, but there's beauty in simplicity, right? And his stuff, the message really comes through. That "Sunset Through the Pines" song, now I've got it in my head again. You know, every time I even think about it, it gets in my head. That's the mark of a great song.
And moving on here, the next artist just departed from there yesterday. One of the bright new stars on the Clarksville Creative Sound label, Evie Mae.
Well, let me first say,
we're reconsidering after spending 2 days with it, 3 days.
No, I want to say, if it were not for our gracious host, Brent Adams, we would not be having, Evie wouldn't be here. Brent brought her to us, and through some of his contacts, and boy, what a wise decision he made bringing her. She is a powerhouse singer. And I just want to say something real quick, Brent. Out of all of the artists that we've mentioned up to this point, I have people go, well, Clarksville Creative Sound, they only care about the kids. They only see. Let me tell you something. The first 6 artists that you named are over the age of 50. So let that sink in to the people out there who think that we're all about children and that sort of thing. No, man, we're all about great singers. And if you're not a great singer, you're not on this label. If you know what I'm saying? You have to have that talent. And so we're happy. Evie Mae's the first one of the young people that you mentioned. She's 16 years old. She's an excellent songwriter. She's got more control over her voice, or as much control as most of the artists on the label. She's very, very gifted powerhouse singer, and she's very pretty. She's marketable. So we're really happy to have Evie.
She's got a powerhouse voice. You were right. And you know, the cool thing about the young artists that we do have on this roster, they all love real traditional country music. They all know who Hank Williams is. They know who Evie definitely knows who Farron Young is, because her father Farron was named after her.
Right.
You know, and we were playing Farron Young the other night when we had this competition going on where we did the dysfunctional family Olympics. We had pool, foosball, and cornhole, and we went from one to another, and we were playing a lot of that old Farron Young music, and she knew most, you know. And by the way, she's extremely competitive. Glad I was on the same team with her when we were playing cornhole, because
her and Braden are exactly the same kid. They are exactly.
But that competitive drive tells you a lot about how she handles and will handle her career. And of course, with all these young artists too, I want to say it's very important to us to know the family situation behind them, because families can make or break these young artists. And every artist that we've got on this list have families that are just bend over backwards and you know, do so much for these kids and support them and travel, you know, hours and hours of travel, you know, and of course in Evie's situation, she's got her dad is the leader of the backup band for her. So.
Well, Curt, speaking of young artists, this next young guy coming to you from the developmental leagues here, I think he's going to be something someday here. You're going to have to keep an eye out for him. This guy right here.
Oh, well.
Oh, Steve Markwardt. You know, of all, I struggle more with anybody than with Steve than anybody on this line. He was even going to be on it, because Steve, you know, has a way of irritating me a lot. You know, he gets me in trouble. Like he gets he wants to do these videos. He's the one that said, Curt, will you put on a wig and be a woman in my next video? And he in all this trouble. And then you're up there showing me as a woman, you know.
Hey, I'm just trying to add some wokeness and saying, Curt, you need to get in touch with your feminine side. And he took it to a whole new level. And I'm like, okay, don't get that far in touch.
Steve is such, if it weren't for Steve Markwardt, we wouldn't probably be sitting here talking right now. Steve, when a lot of people may know this, or people don't know this, but I spent most of my career, excuse me, doing what I do. And I told Steve when I met him, I said, Steve, I'm not a businessman. I'm a creative person. I'm a record producer. And I said, I need somebody who knows something about business to come in here. Well, Steve, not only was he talented as an artist himself, a great singer, he had the business skills that I didn't have. And so together we created something that I don't think is going to dissolve anytime soon. And I think it's going to grow and get bigger and bigger. So yeah, this Steve, I basically put Steve right up there at the top of this list.
Well, I appreciate that. It's an honor. And I love the music. I love creating music. I love, I think what we've kind of dedicated ourselves to as far as my repertoire is concerned is there's enough people out there doing a great job, like on the standards of Western swing and traditional country. We don't need another one of those, so to speak. I was more dedicated at creating new music, new originals that hopefully will be tomorrow's classics. And so when I met Curt and started writing music with him, and then saw what he could do in the studio, it was like rain from heaven for me. And so we've just begun, and we're right in the middle of putting out another album here fairly soon. But I get as big a kick, maybe even more of a kick, just watching all these other folks and helping them get what they deserve, and we are determined again to allow these artists to be able to focus on their music and make a good living doing that. And so that's the main objective. And I guess me, as a businessman, I didn't know anything about the music business per se, and maybe that's a good thing, because what we've done is something kind of unconventional when it comes to the traditional music business, but maybe unconventional is what was needed to make a business model like this work. So that's a whole nother conversation, though.
Right. We can't wait to delve further into that at a later date. But moving on here, Curt, this next artist is one you've known since she was a little girl here, and it's been fun to watch her develop and kind of grow into her sound. And I'm referring to Jasmine McDonald.
Well, Jasmine McDonald, oh my goodness, where do you start with Jasmine? I mean, she's been in artist development with me. She came in at a very young age. And we've taken her to a totally new level. And I don't have to mention how pretty she is. She's definitely one of the most marketable artists we have. Of course, Jasmine, kind of grew up a sheltered kid. She wasn't like out in the public eye a lot. She was homeschooled. So, I talked to her one day in the studio. It's kind of a funny story. I said, Jasmine, we're going to pretend we're doing a record or a radio interview. And I said, I'm going to ask you questions. And I said, you're going to answer them. I said, how long have you been in the music business? She said, since I was 7. That's the end of it. I said, do you like it? Yes. And and I said, okay, we're going to work on that. And so we spent a couple of years. Now, even when I call her on the phone, I'll say, Jasmine, how you doing? And she'll go, I'm good. And I'll go, expand on that. Oh, up this morning, and then she'll go into the story. So Jasmine she's finally come out of her shell, Brent. She's great. Always been an amazing singer, and now she's 18 years old, so she's got to step up and start taking care of her own business. And she's like my own daughter. I've adopted all of these kids as my own kids, and so I'm hoping that Jasmine will continue to have that same desire to want to succeed that she's had in the past, and I think she will.
I think we've just seen the beginning. I don't think we've seen anything yet based on her potential, and she has proven herself, much to our surprise, to be a fabulous songwriter.
Absolutely.
She knows how to write a song, and she can hear the different parts in her head musically.
And plays those parts.
Yeah, she came in the studio months ago and surprised everybody. Said, "I've got a few original songs I wrote," and she played them for us, a recording, and she had a little 4-track or whatever recorder.
There's a little platform called GarageBand out there, and she goes out there and and she plays these instruments, and it's pretty impressive what she's able to do.
Yeah. So we're thrilled. Of course, she's got a great family behind her with Donna and Charlie. You know, they've traveled thousands and thousands of miles, you know, for her, making sure she got where she needed to go. But I think Jasmine's really coming into her own, and you know, who knows, we may have her living in Tennessee before long. So.
And speaking of coming into their own, a couple other young artists here, a brother and sister out of Oklahoma. We'll start out with Austin McKetty.
Well, Austin is he is one of the newest ones that, you know, Austin is, I think I call him still in the artist development stage, although we have put out a couple of singles on him. I think he's going to be an amazing artist in the future. I think we're going to work with him a little bit more and try to get him out of, he's got some bad habits in the studio, and he knows it, he's aware of it, but he also has an amazing voice. So these things can be fixed. That's the good news. And these little things that he does, the habits he does, can be broken and fixed. And I predict in about a year from now, Austin will probably be a really rock solid artist. He's got a couple of screws loose though. This guy was a damn bull, Brent.
Well, I was going to say, as long as the bulls don't knock the vocal cords out of him here, because he loves those bulls.
I know he likes to ride these bulls. I'm a little worried about that.
Yeah. We don't want him to trade his microphone in for some crutches. I mean, that's a tough way to make a living. But he's got that bull riding thing in his blood. And we were talking to Chuck Cusimano about that, because Austin and Mackenzie have been doing some shows with Chuck, and Chuck's an old rodeo cowboy himself. And he goes, yeah, once it's in your blood, it's pretty much stays there, you know. But at some point, you got to be wise about taking care of yourself, and he's you know, he gets out there and gets hurt, he's got a lot to lose.
Well, that lifestyle has sure inspired a whole lot of music, so maybe he can glom onto that a little bit and pull it with him. And you mentioned Mackenzie, of course. She is a little more polished and definitely poised for big things.
I think Mackenzie is the finished product. She has the look, Mackenzie brings that charisma to the stage, maybe better than any artist we have. When she walks on stage, she just lights up the stage with that $1 million smile she always has. She's got that look about her. She dresses always impeccably for these kind of shows that she does. I just adore Mackenzie's personality, her voice. I tried to get her to take a little bit of that southern drawl out of her voice, and then I just realized, you know what? Loretta Lynn had that. She had that same thing, and I'm like, you take that away from them, you could lose something. And I just leave her alone, and she's going to get better. I
think she was born to perform. Yeah, I really do. I think, you know, I don't know what she was like when she was 5 years old, but I imagine she's probably putting on a show for the family, you know. Yeah. Who knows? She's just born to perform, and she's becoming a pretty darn good fiddle player too. And that's part of her whole deal, is holding. I think she'd be lost without that fiddle in her hand.
I agree with that too. And I let her play on her records. I don't let anybody else do that. But with Mackenzie, I do. Although we work out these parts together, because she's capable of doing it. So I'll help her work out the parts, and then I make sure she's in tune really good. She goes out there, and this is going to make her a better musician too.
Well, and those two are working, you know, somewhere. They're out there playing. They're getting a lot of experience. So, you know, when you talk about Austin needing some more development, you know, he's getting a lot of OJT on the job training right now. Yeah. Playing somewhere all the time, and they had a really great experience opening for Gene Watson, and I thought they crushed it. I was real impressed with Austin and how he he held on the guitar and supported Mackenzie when she was singing, and he did a few songs. And I was nervous for him. I'm like, man, because and that's just me, because my guitar needs a lot of work, and I was real proud of how they performed.
His stage presence is awesome too. He reminds me a little bit of Dwight Yoakam, the way he moves around up there.
Yes.
I mean, he's got a lot of good qualities.
Good, two really good looking kids that we're real excited about.
Yeah.
And another artist who I think was born to perform, but is just starting to find her voice here. You had a chance to work with quite a bit this summer out of Texas, is Carrie Romero.
Carrie Romero comes from a karaoke background. She sings with this karaoke group down there in Fort Worth, Texas. Ronnie Ray,
the king of karaoke.
Yeah, he's the king of karaoke, and he brings these artists in. And one day, Ronnie just sent me a message, and he said, "Hey, I want you to look at a video of this girl." Well, I get those every day, and most of them go in file 13. Honestly, maybe one out of 1,000 will pass the test. But I watched that video on her, and I was like, holy crap, this girl can sing. And she's pretty. She had the look. And so we brought her in, and she was here for 5 days, and I'm thinking, okay, we'll probably write 3 or 4 songs, but we connected so much better than anybody I think I've ever written with. I think I connected with Carrie the most, because we wrote 9 songs in 4 days, and we recorded every one of them. Usually a couple of those go on the trash. No, every one of them, I liked them. And her first single, it's in a major magazine.
She's on fire.
She's really, really burning up the airways out there. So I'm really excited about Carrie Romero.
So yeah, you never discount, where you find these artists. I mean, like I said, from a karaoke bar to being in a recording studio with the best producer in Nashville. I mean, and she's deserves that, and she's so excited and willing to do anything she can for the label as a whole.
Yeah.
Well, this next guy couldn't escape music if he wanted to. It's right there in his house, and he wakes up around it and has embraced it. I'm talking about this guy right here, Mr. Braden Ryle.
Oh, Braden Ryle, yeah. How do you define Braden?
We're kind of on and off about him.
Yeah, seriously. I really think that this kid has been in artist development his whole life. That's what I really think. And I think just in the last 6 months, Brent, he's really, really become an artist. Now he walks into the studio to sing, and I believe everything he says, and he pronounces his words perfectly, and his voice is amazing, as we know. Braden is a good kid. I'm really, he's my son, and I'm really proud of Braden. I think he has strong strengths and weaknesses, just like everybody else. I think his strength is Braden one day will be a great record producer, because Brent, he'll come into the studio and I'll record his stuff when he's in school, and then he'll come home and he'll walk up to the console and he'll just start pulling instruments out. Like he'll say, I want to drop this guitar right here. I want to drop this piano. I just want to hear this. And, and he just doesn't. I just sit back and let him and watch and say, okay, let's see where he really takes this. And in the end, every single time, I like what he does. He has a very unique gift to produce records. He's going to do that. And I let him produce his own. Most of the stuff he does, it's him. It's not me. It's him.
Braden's got two things working. One thing working for him, one thing working against him, and they're both that he's an extremely good-looking kid.
Yeah, he looks like me, thank God. And kidding, he looks like his mother. But Braden is a good-looking kid, and of course he's got the girls chasing after him and all that, which is a good thing. You want a marketable singer whenever you're dealing with these kids. But yeah, I think Braden, I think he's just now coming into his own as an artist.
Cool thing. We'll talk about this next artist and then remind me to make a point here, but let's bring the next artist in to focus here.
Right, because there's a lot of parallels here. These two artists have grown up together, have duetted quite a bit together, and have grown together. And I'm talking about Jaden Riley.
Yeah, well, you go ahead.
The first time I saw Jaden Riley, the very first time I ever saw her was accidental. I was just scrolling through YouTube and run across this little child a little blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl singing one of my favorite songs. The only reason I listen to it is because it was one of my all-time favorite songs by Simon and Garfunkel, called The Sound of Silence. And I thought, well, this ought to be cute. You know, here's a little girl singing this. And so I clicked on it. And what I heard was one of the most talented, creative geniuses I've ever heard in my entire life. She was only 7 years old. I couldn't begin to tell you how it put chills all over me sitting there watching that and listening to it. And I just said, I have to find out who she is, and I have to get a hold of her. I have to. And I wouldn't quit. And it was almost, I almost felt a little creepy doing it, but I thought, I want to talk to her. I want to talk to her parents. I just wanted to get her in the studio. And I finally got a hold of them, and they did bring her, and the rest is history. I kind of adopted her as my daughter now. And Jaden has been around with me since the beginning. And she is, I would have to say, of all the singers I have, nobody can equal her when it comes to range. She has a 5-octave range, Brett, and she's absolutely perfectly in tune all the time. It's a gift from God. It's not something you can coach. It's not something you can train. When you listen to her, it has nothing to do with my production skills. She's that good. And
she's got a huge following. If you look at her YouTube videos, you're looking at an average of 5 to 10 to, whatever, million views. She's an actress. She did a movie with Sean Penn called Flag Day, which came out, I don't know when that was, a while back, but so she's the real deal. She's got
every song she does goes viral.
She's a star already. So and so we're in fact, I'm really looking forward. We're picking her and her mother up at the airport tomorrow, and in Nashville, and we're going to be able to go to a place and just get her up on stage, and we're all going to get to perform with our friend Steve Oliver and Nikki Nelson at the Nashville Palace, is it not? Yeah. And she's the one artist I've not met in person because they live in Canada, and it hasn't been easy for them to get down here. So,
well, she had this. I think her and Braden hit it off so big whenever she was like 8 years old. She came up to me one day in the studio and she said, "Do you think I could do a duet with Braden?" He had just come out with the song "Eye on You," which had gotten him all of this TV airplay out there on the RFD network, and she wanted to do a duet with him. And so we did the song "Only You," which I think is somewhere up around 10 million views now. And so together they kind of became the dynamic, what they called them the dynamic duo. And they won award after award after award, and they just have just thousands of these awards everywhere. And so they still record together, and but they're still solo artists at the same time.
So all the cool thing about all these kids, again, and Jaden has her folks, her parents, their names,
Tara and Colin.
Tara, yeah, sorry,
and they have done an amazing job with those kids. And Jaden, even at 10 or 11 years old, we had her down there at Big Machine Records. They were wanting to sign her. And of course, Taylor Swift walked off of that label, joined Universal, and the label changed hands. And when it did, we felt like it was better not to we felt it'd be better just to pull her out of there. And now I'm really glad we did because of what we're doing here with Clarksville Creative Sound. I think in another year, she's going to be huge. She's just going to be a big star.
Yeah, and all these kids are friends with each other. They it's important for us, that there's no petty jealousy thing going on there, because they're all very comfortable in their own skin.
Can I elaborate on that too?
Sure.
What I love about this roster, we're not finished. There's another artist on here, but what I love about this roster is that every one of these people, they pull for each other. We had people that were on this roster that didn't have that thing about them, it was all about them. And these people they're all about each other. It's like a family. And that's exactly what Steve and I wanted when we first started this thing. We're like, we want people, we don't want any jealousy, we don't want any drama. And we got rid of the people who cause those problems. And we ended up with this group of people, and they really, really pull for each other.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting when you're moving in the right direction, and you're hopefully following a divine hand. I think those other negative forces kind of take care of themselves, and that's what we've seen here. And so what we're left with is this roster, which is rounded out and finalized by the next person.
Yeah, and a great traditional country music throwback. Love everything this guy's doing, and glad to see him persevering here, because I think it's a voice that needs to be heard. Because yeah, we all hear it all the time from the naysayers. True country music is dead. Traditional country music is dead, and it's not. It absolutely is not. As I always tell people, you just got to know where to find it. And right here is ground zero for it. And this guy is kind of planting his flag there. And we're talking about Darren Wright.
Yeah. Darren Wright is one of those guys that when he came to me, it was through a guy named Jerry Collins. And Jerry Collins has seen this guy, heard this guy. He brought him to me and said, I think you ought to look at him. Brought him in the studio. And here's a guy that usually, as a producer, you have to kind of get these guys in there and say, okay, we're going to try this. We're going to try this. With Darren, it was just the opposite. He had range, and he had a cannon for a voice, and he wanted to shoot it on every line. And I had to just absolutely hold him.
Simmer down.
I had to hold it. I was like, Darren, that's amazing you can do this. But you can't do it on every line. You got to pick your spots, and you got to know where to really hit these notes. And so he's been a work in progress, but what a great, great talent that guy turned out to be. And he's got the look about it. Reminds me of a Waylon Jennings or somebody.
And Darren's one of those guys that hasn't had a lot of exposure as far as live performance. So we're anxious to get him out there and get him some more exposure there. And
that might be his biggest weakness right now is performing. We don't know. I've not seen him on stage. And before we put him on stage, we're going to have to see that. We're going to have to make sure that he's because I will tell you this: there's nobody can out-sing this guy.
No.
He's a great, fabulous singer, and radio eats him up, man. They love every time we release it. Brent, you know that because
that's right.
You can't wait to play his stuff when you get it. So
absolutely, yeah, it just fits in so well with some of the great traditional artists that we run on here that have that legendary sound, and he's one of those guys that if he had fallen in that era would be a tremendous star now, and I still think he has the potential to be that as some of this music comes back around. And one of the cool things to see, and we've been talking about this a lot the last few months, is there's such a clamoring for late 80s, early 90s country music. So I think there's just tons of opportunity there for a guy like that to really be heard as the pendulum is starting to swing the other way on this music.
Yeah, well, and he's overseas right now, by the way, at the Red Carpet Awards.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He was invited to come over and perform in Holland, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think
it was Holland.
So he's getting some live performance. Internet. He's got a big international following. You made a point about going back to the 80s. The more traditional country, and as we've seen in the media, just the last few days, the things that have transpired when you're talking about small town, and everybody I'm sure knows what I'm talking about and all that. But it just plays right into what we've been trying to do, what we are doing here at Clarksville Creative Sound by bringing back, and putting real country and traditional, and Western swing and all that back in the forefront. I think we've made quantum leaps in doing that, and we are successfully doing that. And it just also feeds into, and one reason why we love being partnered with you, Brent, and what you're doing with Rural Strong Radio, because that salt of the earth demographic is who we speak to.
Absolutely. I mean, just hardworking blue collar folks who have good values and just want to hear this music that speaks to them. And I think that what's being created here definitely checks all those boxes. And we've now seen the artist roster as it stands today on July 21st, 2023, from top to bottom.
Well,
what a roster.
There's one person that we might have left out here, but and I may get a strong disagreement here, but that's a guy named Curt Ryle.
No.
As an artist himself, And he disagrees. Curt likes to stay these days, I guess, on the boards and behind the scenes. But I'm telling you, this man can sing, and of course, he's one of the best guitar players in the world. I know that, and musician. I mean, he can do anything. And so, Curt has graciously taken a step out of the limelight in support of all these other artists, and you know, I couldn't ask for a better partner in a music endeavor, but I certainly when I'm most excited is when I look on stage and I look to my side and there's Curt right there with me, because there's no better band leader, there's no better arranger, there's no better songwriter, and Curt could sing a heck of a song too.
But that's really really where I want to be, is behind the scenes, Brent. I've always felt like this. Mel Tillis tried to get me a recording contract back in the '80s, and he got me one, and I ended up not doing it. I turned it down.
Because you weren't wearing the wig.
Yeah. You know, I just don't really. Honestly, it's not that I don't want to be that. It's just that I just don't feel like I'm quite good enough to be a singer. I really prefer sitting back and watching these other artists grow and become, you know, helping them become stars, because I know they have talent. And so I'm going to stay off of this roster. I really don't have much desire to be an artist, but I appreciate this.
Well, we'll get him out of his shell, Brent.
We'll keep chipping away. But between the Kick 66 tour and what's going on at National Hall and some of the other opportunities that are quickly materializing, just a lot of opportunities to showcase this talent. And I hope everybody will stay plugged in here to Fort Worth Musical Moments and some of the other things that we're doing here, and make sure you're following all the socials too, so you can stay plugged into everything that's going on. And I think we want to make sure we toss the website out there, because the website's out there now, clarksvillesound.com. Make sure you're following the website and supporting each of these artists individually, because it's important that that we throw the support behind them, so this continues to grow.
Well, I want to say something about the website, and that's been I've kind of dropped the ball on that, but in my own defense, we've been, you know, going back and forth, and we had to let things shake out as far as determining our roster, which we just unveiled here today. So the website, if you go to it, there's not much to it right now, but just know that we're about to really kick it into high gear and get that website done. The website's going to have two different portals. It's going to have two different gates, so to speak. When you pop up on the lead page, it's going to have Clarksville Creative Sound record label and Clarksville Creative Sound recording with Big Matador as the affiliated recording entity. So you can go either way. And when you click on the record label, what's going to come up then is a grid of all these folks that we just talked about, and each one of those will have their own profile page. That then we'll have a link to their own website, and they'll have, you know, links to videos, and there'll be all kinds of content on there eventually. And we're, like I said, kicking that into high gear to make sure that gets done.
And Brent, also, I know Steve doesn't want me to say too much about what we've been doing up here this week, but I would love to just mention a little bit about what we've done, Steve, in these meetings, especially for the artists. Steve Markwardt has brought something to the table that I think needs to be discussed a little bit. I'm going to let you do it so that I don't stick my foot in my mouth, because I will. But I know that we now have a company that is linked, that does promotion. Steve,
well, so in my life, you know, the last 25 years or so, I've been working mainly in private equity investments, and what that means is there are companies that are startup companies per se that cannot get financing to get their company launched through conventional means, so they will go out in any way they can and raise money through investor pools. And as these companies get a little bit further down range, a lot of them will go out and do a bona fide capital raise that's certified, and they do it the right way. And so I've been looking for companies like this to invest in that have a good potential and a little further down range as far as their growth is concerned, in improving out the viability of their business model. One of those companies is a company I invested in back about 4 years ago, I guess, a company called Blended Sense, and they're what they've done is they've kind of turned the whole creative design and marketing business model on its ear by creating this intelligent platform that what it does is if you're a client of theirs, you no matter where you are geographically, that platform will match you with a creative in your area. Anything from a great graphic designer to a videographer to a photographer to a copywriter, you name it. And they've built this whole platform, and the way they sell their services is on a subscription basis. And there's certain levels of subscription that you can take and pay for. So it's a flat fee every month, and for that fee you get so much of these creative services. And what they're doing is mainly creating content for these guys and doing it very professionally. And they've been heavily in the real estate market for the last 3 or 4 years, because these realtors definitely are all about content and getting their name out there, because they're all fighting for the same listings and all that. But I've been keeping my eye on them, and so I had a conversation with him a couple of days ago, and I said, "Are you guys ready to branch into a new industry besides real estate?" And they said, "Yeah, we're ready." And I said, "How about the music business?" And so what we're working on now is a program where they're going to come in and they're going to work with each one of our artists to create content for them, help manage their social media, which we all need help on. There's so much more we could be doing that we will be doing with their guidance. And of course, again, they've got videographers that we can utilize, no matter what geographical area we're in the United States, and they'll be able to help create music videos and just plain content. It's all about content. I mean, we've talked about that. And so we're excited. We're working on the plans for that, for those guys to come in and help support us and support our artists. And that's I think a major strategic piece to help us grow as a record label.
And this would include promotion on platforms such as TikTok.
TikTok, yeah, all the platforms that old guys like Curt and I don't really delve into. And I was asking Braden and Evie, I said, what is the most relevant platform for you guys? And they said, "Oh, TikTok." My daughter calls Facebook parent book. And so not that Facebook isn't relevant by any means. I mean, but if you're really going to do it right, you got to go across all these platforms. And most of these artists don't have time or the know-how to continue to create content on a regular basis. It's just like a retail store. You go into a retail store and you look around and you say, "Oh, this is nicely displayed," and you see all these different areas of the store. But if you come back a month later and it's still the same stuff in the same place, you kind of get bored, and you don't have an incentive to go back and into the store. Great merchandisers in that regard, they know that they've got to keep refreshing the product offering, and even if they've got the same product in stock, they move it around to where it's not in the same place.
The hardest thing for artists to do is to go out on TikTok and post something, or Instagram. These people will do that for them.
Right.
This is what is the most
it's about new content. Everything is newsworthy. Everything is newsworthy. Everything is content worthy. Yeah. And we know this. And so these guys are going to help us and our artists from that standpoint create.
And this is just one of the things that Steve brings to the table with this record company. He's thinking outside the box all the time, and promotion is the key. We have promoters, and they promote, and they do a lot of promotion. But this company will take it to a totally different level. And these people who go, "Well, I don't know anything about TikTok and all that stuff," they may not have to worry about that.
Yeah.
That's the beauty in this thing. And I just wanted to mention that we have other things that we are working on that we won't get into today, but we do have I guess we have a future out there that looks really bright. And I don't know how you will handle it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been working on, one other thing that this group's going to do is initially is work with all these artists to develop their own brand if they don't already have that. And I think it's important for everybody to have their own brand. And the brand, of course, will be under the umbrella of Clarksville Creative Sound. But there are other things we're working on. And of course, we're in the early stages of talks but it's looking very promising. And all I'll say is it involves television in a very big way.
Yeah.
So a lot to be paying attention to here, and we want to thank everybody who's joining us today. A lot of great folks chiming in here, and I see a lot of interest here, and we're going to continue to build on that. So hope you get plugged in if you're not already to the Clarksville Creative Sound Facebook group, the Fort Worth Musical Moments Facebook group, and also the Rural Strong Media Facebook page. As we continue to build this, we want to make sure that you guys are keeping on top of the latest. Also, again, that website, clarksvillesound.com. And guys, we're up against it here, so we'll let you get on the road here, and we will be back again next week with another great episode.
Yep, well, more will be revealed as things move forward, but we're excited, and we appreciate everybody tuning in, and really appreciate everybody's support for these artists. You know, as we started announcing dates for performances and tours and things like that, we want everybody to come out and bring friends. You know, we've got this National Hall thing in Fort Worth, because we do need to mention Fort Worth. This is Fort Worth Musical Moments in National Hall. We're excited to continue to say that it's going to be one of our home bases for performances on a regular basis, and we're real excited about that. So appreciate everybody supporting us and supporting those artists, and spread the word and help us build this fan base.
And also, just one thing, Brent, Road Stories Monday night, Curt Ryle's Road Stories. You and I will be on there. With special guest Jaden Riley. You don't want to miss that one. That will be amazing. And we may even have Braden in there with her, where they can talk about some of the stories that they had as kids growing up doing these videos and all this music. So Monday night, tune in.
Yeah, that'll be at 8 p.m. Central, 9 o'clock Eastern time. We're gonna convene for that. So make sure you come and check that out. And we'll be back with that. And again, hope everybody gets plugged into the Fort Worth Musical Moments Facebook group, the Clarksville Creative Sound Facebook group, and the Rural Strong Media Facebook page. Also, as Steve mentioned earlier, Rural Strong Radio, the 24/7 streaming radio station found at ruralstrongmedia.com. On the Live 365 streaming radio app. We're rolling right now with ag programming. Also got a little bit of trucking programming each night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And again, 7:30 a.m. Eastern on Saturdays and Sundays, where we play Landline Now from the Landline Media to get you up to speed on what's going on in the trucking industry. And when we're not playing ag and trucking programming, it's the best in traditional country music, bluegrass, western swing, a little inspirational music, and some southern rock. And a lot of great Clarksville Creative Sound artists pop up on there very regularly. So make sure you're plugged into that. And again, as we say every week, at 9 a.m. Central, Robbie Lynn with Sunday's Kind of Country, 3 hours of great inspirational music. And then at noon Central, Billy Bowles Swinging Country out of the studios at KSSL in the Lubbock, Texas area. He's got 2 hours of great traditional country and western swing music. One of the great champions for that music, Billy Bowles, and always great to talk with Billy and have him check in. He puts in just a ton of work and a tremendous show every week. So check that out, noon Central on Rural Strong Radio. Again, at ruralstrongmedia.com or on the Live 365 streaming radio app. Well, it's time for us to get on out of here. Let our friends get on the road here and check out from the Smoky Mountains. But we'll be back again next week, 10 a.m. Central, for Fort Worth Musical Moments. Guys, safe travels, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
You've been watching Fort Worth Musical Moments, a production of Rural Strong Media and Clarksville Creative Sound, copyright 2023. Please join the Fort Worth Musical Moments Facebook group and join us each Friday at 10 a.m. Central as we introduce you to another key figure in Fort Worth's musical heritage.